Hello, my beautiful, gorgeous dance baby, and welcome to another episode of More Than Dance. Have you ever had this thought that comes to your head and you're just like, man, I wish I had more opportunities. I wish that I could do that. I wish that I could have the life that that person's living. And my challenge for you throughout this whole episode is to turn the mirror back on you and to see if you're saying yes enough. And this episode is all about yes and. So let's get into it. You can hear this subject being spoken about in the improv world. So if you've ever known anyone to be an actor or an improv actor, or even in conversation, the kind of conversation that'll get you to the next level kind of conversation, and in the dance world. So let's first just define what yes and is. Yes and means yes, I see what you just said, and also this. And the opposing force of this would be, no. And it would be like, And what we call that is downer energy. And it's not fun energy to be around. And right now, I can actually invite you to take just an inventory of your supporters, the people who are always looking out for you and getting excited for what you're doing. And when you take that inventory, if you see a lot of people being no people and not yes and people, well, it's time for an upgrade. So what yes and will feel like is like anything is possible. It'll feel like all the ideas that you have are great ideas, and the idea of bouncing off of that person is contributing to you having greater, bigger ideas or 10xing what you're thinking. So I like to put myself in the position of yes and people, and I like to have conversations that are yes and conversations. And I find that they build me up way more than the no conversations, because the no conversation for me personally, I can see how it's strategic, right? Because it's like, no, this is, what you want to do is actually this, and no, and da-da-da-da. And it's kind of like, it's strategic, and I appreciate that. And I do like to appreciate different views. Me personally, I just thrive off of the excitement and the positivity. So let me tell you a story about when I first heard about this. So I was actually in a business conference, and the rule of the game that we were playing was yes and surprise. And basically you were talking about your business and how you wanted to grow. So in this case, I was talking about my dance business. And the idea was, I want to do such and such a thing, and this is why it would be cool. And then the idea after that was from the other person or the other people in the group of who you're talking to. And they say, yeah, or that's amazing, or anything that's in the vibe of yes. And then they add into what your goal is. And just to bring it into the dance world for a second, we're in yes and energy all the time when we're on the dance floor. And the reason is because, let's take improvisation for a quick example. So have you heard of contact improv? Contact improv is where you're utilizing the space with the people in the room with you. So we refer to the space around our body as negative space. And when you're improving with others, you're contributing to the negative space around them. So you're almost like, in a way, filling in the holes. There's communication through the body without the face. There's obviously communication through the body with eyes, but very rarely in improv is there communication verbally. And the idea through the body that you're articulating is, I see that move that you just did, and isn't it cool if I added this in? And so it is a conversation, and it's a conversation that propels upward to climactic moments. It could be if we're sensing that a big beat drop is coming, we'll utilize that. If we're sensing that we're both telling the same story, we can utilize our yes and moments to contribute to that storytelling. And what's also exciting about the yes and is you're never wrong. So that really feeds the ego when you're dancing. When you're thinking about improv can be like one of those things that's just so scary for a lot of my dancers when they're first starting out. And at the same time, it's one of the best things you can do as a dancer because it helps you find your movement patterns. It helps you figure out, we refer to this as the moves in your dancer toolkit. And it's kind of like you have this arsenal of tricks, things that you're working on and things that you love to do that really showcase your dance spirit. And how do you bring those out? And how do you do that on the spot, which is obviously what improvisation is. So when you're communicating these ideas to people on the dance floor with you, they're saying, yes, what a good idea. And what else do you have? Yes, what a good idea. And what if I did this too? And then you're responding back saying, yes, that's an amazing idea. And go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to add on. So when you're thinking about it, you're like, whoa, like I just did that really cool move, right? You could be still questioning it because we are built to question ourselves. So you might be thinking, oh, maybe I should have gone over there. And so be it. So maybe next time you'll know, like fill in the space maybe differently. The point is you made a choice. You decided to go through with that move and they acted accordingly. And what you can take from that is, wow, part of me, part of my dancing spirit made that happen. So the idea with these kinds of conversations, and you can use them, and it's actually a really easy way to find people you might not want to be with. This is a concept like that's familiar in my family as well. So my brother knows this, and him and I, like, we have these jokes that we just like riff off of. Like they're inside jokes, obviously, but they've been around for years. And the other day, I just remember saying something to my brother and like, you know, expecting him to laugh. And he was like, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, oh, like you're not being a yes-ander right now. And then because he got my joke, because he knows that, like we both know that because I think he was taking some type of class that like talked about this idea as well. And then he just cracked up laughing and he was like, you're right. Like, and he caught himself and he was like, yeah, I wasn't being a yes-ander. So let's talk about ways that you can be a yes and person when you're on the dance floor. So one of them is to be ready to go to class. It could be that you're communicating with yourself. And this is, again, one of my favorite things to do is to separate yourself, like your higher self and your regular self, just like kind of coexisting in the same space. And your really big higher self has written down this unique routine for you for the week. You're going to go do all these amazing things. You're going to check it off. And then like yourself in the moment might not want to do those. So when you're having that conversation, your higher self is like, and then you're going to go to class after you get home from work. And then your other self is like, well, no, I'm not. But that's not being a yes and person. That would be being a knower. And what you can say is, yes, and I'm going to feel so much better when I do. Or, yes, and even though I feel tired today, I'm still going to give it my all. Or, yes, and I'm going to go and I'm going to leave a little bit early because I want to get ready for tomorrow. So it gives you boundaries. It allows you to play with where you are right now. So if you're tired, it allows you to feel like you can be tired and you can still dance at the same time. It allows you to feel like you're really busy, and it allows you to still make time for the things that are making you whole. Another way you can be a yes-ander at dance is, I guess we can get this one out there. We kind of already talked about it, but yes, during improv, you can be a yes-ander. And that means whatever you're receiving from the other people in your class with you, you can yes-and them back. And that might look like building a story with them. It might mean going to the same space on the stage with them. It might mean traveling in certain shapes with them. And then just to separate actual improv to just a class space, allowing yourself to be yes and at the studio could be like sitting next to someone you haven't sat next to before, going in a place that you haven't danced. If you're a right side learner, you might go to the left side just to try it, just to be open. Because yes and is all about being open. It could be helping someone get acquainted with the studio space, meaning they've come in for the first time and you're kind of like contributing to their experience in a positive way. So maybe sharing your name, telling them what to expect, showing them like where you put your water bottle, just like little gestures like that. Those are yes and gestures. The next way that you can be a yes-ander when you're at the studio is when you're learning. So we've already talked a lot about how when you're in the learning phase, things are very overwhelming and you can feel this pressure to perform at 100, even though you're in the learning phase. So being in the yes and mode would be like this. Wow, this is hard for me today. And I'm doing such a good job with figuring it out. Or, wow, this one feels really hard on my body today. And I'm going through all of my tips and techniques for improving my memory. So we talked about how and is such a powerful word. And it really is a powerful word because it allows two things to exist at the same time. And one of those things is maybe the hardness of the class. And the other thing is the fact that, yes, it's hard and you're doing great things with what you have in front of you, with the skills that you have acquired, with the way that you're feeling in that present moment. When you adopt a yes and attitude, you're allowing yourself to be open. We talk about body posturing. This is the equivalent of that. So while it's not about body language right now, yes and is about a persona that you're being that is open, because it's open to hearing feedback. It's open to hearing a different way to get to the same space. So have you ever been driving before and you're in the car, you're a passenger, and you're in a familiar area where you actually know the roads, and the person driving goes a way that you definitely wouldn't have gone? It's the same as that. They're going, they still get you home. Maybe they save a couple minutes, maybe they add a couple minutes. The point is, it's not what you would do, and it still does the same thing. So a yes and moment in the car, just because we're talking about this, would be internally probably, I'm recognizing that he or she is going a different way and we're still going to get there. They still know where we're going. One of the big things about yes and is it checks your ego. And if you have a habit of living in your ego, if you've ever heard the phrase, ego is your biggest overhead, what that means is, why are you doing what you're doing? Is it because it's really meaningful, or is it because of your ego? And this is something people get to put in check a lot. And it's because we don't always have the ability to check our egos like that, because we're operating from a place of instincts and using our gut. And sometimes it gets a little cloudy if our ego is too strong at that moment. And then if you can take a step back and be like, whoa, was I not feeling up for that because of my ego? Or was it because of maybe a limited belief? That's another one that'll get in the way of you living your best life. And if you can say yes, and not only are you opening yourself up to it, you're also getting practice with boundaries. And boundaries can be one of the hardest things to master, because it feels like boundaries are a bad thing, not a good thing. And this goes hand in hand with people pleasing. Boundaries are a great thing because they're helpful for you and they're helpful for the other person. One of the biggest things when Josh and I were kind of learning each other's boundaries, we both recognized oh, if that's a boundary of yours, well, I don't want to be the one that disturbs that piece of yours. And same thing on the other side. So that's why we're almost excited to know what the boundary is for each other, because then that means that we can play by the book. And it means oh, this is one of those things that he doesn't like, or this is one of those things that she doesn't like, and then make our moves based on that. So yes, and this is how I want to do it. Or, hey, do you want to go here? Yes, and I don't want to go right now. Or yes, and I want to go tomorrow. So it gives you practice with boundaries, because boundaries are really hard to do sometimes. And they feel negative. But when you add the yes in ahead of it, it's no, I still want to do that. It's just, I'm not going to be able to right now. Or I want to be able to support you. So yes, and I have to do this first, or I get to do this first. So in this next week, I want you to just get practice saying yes and it doesn't quite matter which capacity you want to practice in it yet. The point is that you're practicing it, because we can sometimes play in this zone of being fragmented, oh, that's the part of me that dances, and that's the part of me that manages the house, and that's the part of me that works. But really, at the end of the day, we're all one person, and we are this pie that I always speak about. And what that means is, when you get strong in one area of your life, it can seep into other areas of your life where you are improving. So you being able to be a yes-ander at your job, well, once you start thinking about it in the capacity of, oh, maybe I could be a yes-ander in my social life, because maybe I'm recognizing that I don't have as many friends as I'd like to have. So then you're like, well, let me take that quality that I'm so good, so rehearsed at over here, and I'll bring it over to this compartment of my life. And when you're on the dance floor next, what I want you to think about is being open and being ready. And if you happen to be a lyric learner or a beat person, or maybe you're tied to counts, get excited to say, yes, okay, we're getting the counts. And let me also try this other way that she always talks about. Or maybe you get to the studio and you're wearing something different than you normally would wear. So yes, I'm going to class and I'm trying something new. So give that a try. Let me know how it goes. And I'm going to do it with you too, because we can always get more practice saying yes and if you haven't yet, one of my favorite movies is The Yes Man, Jim Carrey. It's just like him changing his whole life by saying yes. I think I talk about this like a lot in these podcasts just because there's so much positivity that comes from being open and being ready to say yes. So if this was helpful for you at all, it would mean the world to me if you left a 5-star written review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And please share this with a friend because this is the only way that the podcast will grow. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the dance floor.